You can do as you're comfortable. Okay, so we're live now. Welcome to our webinar on women in filmmaking. I'm Biya Shadab. I'm a filmmaker and I'm a lecturer at the Media Sciences Department here at SZABIST. I'm very pleased to have with me here today Safyah, Zafar, Usmani, and Sourath Behan. Welcome, Safyah and Sourath.
Hi, Biya. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Sourath is a filmmaker. She's also a film editor and a film colorist. And Safyah is an Emmy-nominated filmmaker, and she works as a writer and producer and a director. Um, uh, the purpose of our webinar today is to discuss opportunities and challenges in the film industry, but from a very gender-specific lens. And we're going to have a candid conversation about our experiences in the industry as women, and also about the road that lies ahead. Before we get into our discussion proper, I just want to very briefly sort of sketch out the landscape of Pakistani cinema and the position of women in it. Even if we are looking globally at the position of women in cinema, it's a dismal picture. So, for example, I was looking at this study from the San Diego State University, and it was showing in 2018, of the 250 top grossing films, only 20% of the producers, writers, directors, cinematographers, and editors combined, they were women. And within that, there was only 8% of these were women directors. And we know that there is a sort of a greater call for, there's a call for greater representation. There's voices against systematic gender discrimination in the workplace. We're all aware of, the Me Too movement. We're all aware of Time's Up. And then, this sort of brings us to what about in Pakistan, where gender inequality is of a greater concern, even in our social norms and the laws of our country. And what happens as women when we are working in this industry. We don't really have any official data as such to guide us with this conversation. I'm going to refer to a paper that was published in 2020 in Bioscope about women filmmakers in Pakistan. And the paper sort of estimated that between 2013 and 2018, about 57 films were released. And within these, 18% of the directors were women. And this figure goes up to 20% if we include women co-directors. And if we include more positions of power, such as producer, writer, along with director, this goes up to 60%. And that sounds pretty good. But the women are working with smaller budgets, of course. But we have various names that we can refer to, Sabiha Sumar, Marine Jabbar, Afia Nathaniel, Iram Parveen Bilal, and of course Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, who's a multi-Oscar and Emmy winner. I think it would be very interesting for students and the audience in general to sort of hear you talk about your professional journey. Maybe Safyah, we can start with you, and so sort of like an experiential. In your words, what it's been like for you going through your career.
Firstly, thank you, Biya, for having me. I think I started making documentaries and films professionally in 2010. That's when I was still at SZABIST. I was studying, and then I started, working professionally as well. I'm going to speak for myself. I never put a lens of gender when it came to my experiences. But in the beginning,
I'm having some trouble with Safyah's video reception. Sourath, are you able to hear her?
Yeah, I think it's Sourath. Yeah, I think.
Can you hear me?
I see her here now.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, we can hear you now.
Did you guys lose me?
Yes, we did for 2 seconds there.
Okay, all right. So, like I said, I started making films back in 2010 when I was still a part of SZABIST, right? Over the years, as I worked in the industry, then I went abroad on my Fulbright to get my master's. When I came back, it was especially then that I started noticing, I was forced to notice and put this lens of gender in terms of, how I was being treated in comparison to others. Now, let me put this disclaimer right ahead, Biya. I believe in being so good at your work that people need you right there. And at that point, your gender shouldn't really matter. Your craft matters, your hard work matters, your professionalism matters. And that's what people should be calling you for, not because you're a girl or a boy, right? So I'm just going to say that. So I've really worked on my craft and my sense of hard work and my professionalism. So I really never really, had to feel like, oh, I'm a woman working somewhere, except a couple of places that were unfortunate. And we can definitely talk about experiences, what happened there later in our conversation. But apart from that, I really believe that, if you are a woman or a man, if you work really hard at your craft and make yourself valuable, then there is a market out there of people who will respect you for what you do, and they're not going to care about your agenda.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Sourath, would you like to add a few words? We were talking about your sort of professional journey
Hmm.
from when you were a student to where you are
Yeah.
now, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, I would definitely like to add to that. I think I would agree with Safyah that if you work on your craft and if you're good at what you do, people will eventually like call you up and okay, hey, there's a project and we would like to collaborate, because filmmaking is a collaborative medium and you need people. So if you're good at what you do, people will eventually call you. I think my experience with filmmaking, my journey has been such that when I graduated, I wanted to be a cinematographer. And I was really, really lucky when we were doing filmmaking. We were studying filmmaking at SZABIST. Films were not being made at that time. But I think right after I graduated, I was really lucky to find an internship on a feature length film. And even though I wanted to intern in the camera department, there was no vacancy. And just because I wanted to work in film as a filmmaker, I was given this opportunity to work on in the wardrobe department. And then I think um, it's just that people should be willing to start small, and then eventually you can just figure out what exactly do you want to do. So from a wardrobe department person to like I went into the director's team. I was one of the ads, and then eventually I went into post production.
Right.
So yeah, so that has been my journey.
Right.
I think I'm just going
You
to add to that, Sourath. Sorry to cut you off, Bia. But like
please, sir.
Sourath said something really important here. You should be willing to start small. And
Yeah.
not just that, I add to that, even when you grow, you should be willing to do smaller roles if the need arises. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I started off, my first internship was when I was in 8th grade, and it was related to media. And that's when I was bitten by the bug of filming and being on the set. And I was like, wow, I love it, just being on the set all night. And I remember my first internship, I was made to iron wardrobe. I was made to bring biryani on the set. I was made to coordinate for all the parts. When it was a quiz show we were doing for Era by, right? I was made to coordinate for everyone, and then I'd be on set like 24 hours. There were days, I remember there were 3 days I didn't even go back home. And what was I? I was in 8th grade, right? I loved it so much. You have to love it so much that you don't consider any role to be small, because till date, now that I'm like Emmy nominated, filmmaker, even on this Emmy nominated project, we were working with a very small crew here, and we had to do I had to do everything. I post on my social media as well. There would be one backpack, and I would be handling like everything in there. There would be snacks and maybe some fruits and water for the entire crew, and calling people and ironing people's clothes and just doing everything. Because if you really love your work, nothing is really small or big for you to do. You got to have the passion to do everything if the need arises.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, like in film, your project is only as good as your teamwork is. And so, in that place and in that collaborative nature of the medium, this ability and willingness to just, get your hands dirty is so
Yes.
important. Yeah. On that note, like I just wanted you guys to sort of comment on the role of education and what it did for your career, how important you feel it is for you personally, and also, our industry is a very young sort of industry, and we're still learning. So what is the importance of an education in this field? What's your experience been?
Um, Education, obviously, it's a no-brainer. It is important. But then what is education, right? If you're talking about institutionalized education, yes, those 4 years of my undergrad really helped me. But then I shouldn't be thinking that once I have an undergrad degree or even a master's degree, my education is over, right? I cannot just limit my education to a certain number of years that I'm going to a certain college or university. There's more to it, right? I should be willing to.
We've lost Safia again, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so.
Do you want to pick up Sourath,
Yeah, sure.
and then
So
once he's back? Yeah.
yeah, I think I education did have a huge role to play when I came to filmmaking. Um, I think the plus point that I had when I started my internship, and when I was also aiding, and then eventually when I went into post production, the plus point that I had, that my basics were covered.
Right.
And all the 4 years that I had spent at Zabis, also I would like to I would like to say this out loud, that I think we as girls, when we're doing stuff, I think it's a psychological thing that we're taught, that girls are not good with technical stuff. And I think eventually it's like so ingrained, so we hear that so much that we start believing it as well. And I
Right.
think we need to unlearn that, and I think that's how I also started learning stuff on my own, because I think the first time I started editing was when I was a student, and the only reason I did it because I didn't have anyone to do it for for me. So
Right.
shoot bhi karna hai, for instance, we had a lot of assignments that we used to go for shoots on. तो होता ये था कि अच्छा, I don't have anyone to like shoot some this assignment for me. I don't have anyone to edit it for me. I'll have to do it for myself. So I just had to like pick up the camera, go out, and shoot the assignment, and then edit it myself. And that's how I learned. Kitchen, this is not as bad as I thought it will be, and it's pretty easy. And I think ye cheese, we need to unlearn this, that oh, technical stuff girls can't do it. So maybe like once you're past that, I think you're fine. And I think
Right.
for me, yes, it is very intimidating at first, the technicalities, but don't let it consume you, because even I am still learning all the technical aspects of filmmaking, how to get things done the right way, and it's okay. But I think for me, it helped because my basics were covered. I had done all of that in the 4 years, and I think, but the learning curve, it doesn't stop. It just like goes on. You keep learning. Even I've been
Right.
working for almost 9 years, and I'm still learning everything new every day. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Safia, we lost you. Would you
I
want
am
to
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
I
want
hope
to carry?
I don't get disconnected again. But I think Sorath is talking on along the same lines as what I was saying, that your education, your the quest for knowledge should never really stop. You cannot just get a clear pass saying that, oh, I went to 4 years of school or for a master's and that's it. I have all my education. Sorath has been in the industry for 9 years. I've been in the industry for 11 years, right? And we still have this
I think Safia is having web issues again. Um, it's all right. We can carry on. I was also really interested, Saurath, in like understanding like what was the moment when you like realized that this industry or this line of work is for you. Like, was it some creative influence on you? Was there an aha moment? How did you know?
I,
Right.
I think for me it was a very personal thing, because when I was younger, I think I was a very shy and introvert kid, and for me, art, and I was into painting and drawing, so
Right.
that was my medium of expression. So the transition has been very gradual, from paintings and drawings to like moving images. So I think it's just that I loved how I was able to express myself through this medium, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that was I realized this is what I want to do and this is what I love doing, and that was just that's when I realized this is something that I
This
want to pursue in life.
Right. Safia, we were talking about how did you sort of realize that this line of work is it for you? This is what you want to make your career in. Was there some sort of like a creative influence on you? Some aha moment? Did you always know how how did you make that choice to commit to this line of work?
I think I always knew that I would get into media. When I was a kid, I've been writing since the age of 10. And I've been writing since, before I even realized that I wanted to share that writing with people, right? So that was there always. And then earlier on, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to tell because I've always been interested by, the real life stories and the issues. I've always been very vocal about, things that are going wrong around me. And if people are not speaking up for themselves, then I have to speak up for people and what right they need and, how should they be treated and everything. There was always this sense in me that I wanted to do, right? So I wanted to be a journalist. And that's why I joined SZABIST. And I got into media studies, and we had journalism courses, and then we also had these courses of production courses. And that is when I realized, wow, there is this world that I didn't know of, right? And this comes with privilege. I was able to get to Sabbath day.
Well, I think the internet's like letting us down
Yeah.
again. Um, okay. Uh, while we wait for Safia, how about there's another thing that on the same sort of note that I wanted to, and I think Safia was kind of getting there, with switching from journalism into documentary and storytelling. When we generally as media students, or when you start out, everybody is more sort of keen on becoming a writer or a director, um, uh, and mostly it's director, right? But there is like
Yeah.
a plethora of roles and career paths within filmmaking that people are not even aware of. Like if I was just to start, like beyond a director, a writer, producer, you could work in sound design as an editor or as a DOP, a colorist in PR or marketing. Talent management, styling, and then there's even the more academic aspect of these things, which is sort of research, or programming, curating, all of these skills that we really need in order to boost our industry. Would you want to sort of comment on that? Sort, especially since you've sort of done your exploration in these different departments, and how you sort of found your own, and just talk about the richness, like that exists within our industry of job roles.
Yeah, I think that is, as I said earlier, that filmmaking is a collaborative medium. And as I said that when I graduated, I wanted to be in the camera team. I think it's okay to figure, if you've graduated and if you're still trying to figure out what exactly what department do I want to work in, and that's fine, because until unless you don't do it and you don't realize catch up, because once you're working in a certain department, that's only when you realize that this is something that I want to do. And I think when you're even just in post production, when you're in Zabis, I only thought that there's only editing and that's about
Hmm.
it. But
Hmm.
it's only when I started working in post production I realized that there's a completely different department for color grading, and there's the VFX department, and just sound design itself. Music composition is different, sound design is different. So there's a lot of stuff that you can explore, and just find your thing, and something that interests you, something that moves you, something that is, if there's something that you love doing, just go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And within all of these job roles, like, do you think that there are like certain that women have been traditionally in our industry working more in, and if there's a particular reason for it? I don't know if Safia can hear us. I don't know. So the internet is being particularly
Yeah,
challenging to.
yeah. I
Sort of
think,
maybe, yeah.
yeah. So I think, as I said before, I think Safya's back. As I said
So,
before, that we've always thought that women are very good at the creative side of filmmaking. They're writers, they're producers, they're directors, and we never looked into them being part of the technical side. So it's just that, even so, I'll just share a small example. When I was working on a film, and I was working with a very senior person, and I back then I had like realized that I have a slight inclination towards editing and post production. And I was working at a post production house, and I had this discussion, and I told him that I think I really feel that I can be a decent editor, and I find this very interesting, and is there a way I can intern at your post production house? I would really love to like learn stuff. And what I was told was, we don't prefer giving internship to girls. This was back in 2013. So we don't
right,
prefer teaching girls, or giving them internship, because we just feel that we're wasting our energy and time, because
right,
eventually girls will get married. तो जितना कुछ आपने उसको सिखाया है वो सारा जाया हो जाएगा, तो what's the point? And I think back then, उस वक्त I had thought maybe he's right, but I never realized that 6 months later I will eventually like get into it, because I really wanted to do it. And I think my boss was very supportive, and he was very encouraging. He's like, if you enjoy it, then why don't you just do it? So I
right,
was like, okay, yeah. So I think that's how I got into it. So I think, yeah, it's just that we ourselves have to like unlearn this thing that
right.
you know
It's very
I really
interesting.
want to add to this, if you guys can hear me and if I'm part of
He
the
can, he
conversation right
can.
now. I don't know
Yes,
if I'm here. Okay,
yeah,
perfect. So this bias that Sourath was talking about, I just want to add to that. Yes, that happens. I remember in one of my, job interviews, the person who I'm not gonna name suggested, she was he was like, he or she, whatever, they were like, hey, oh, so we really want you in, and but please, can you just make a promise that you're not gonna get married in the next 3-4 years, shadi nahi karna, because we want your full attention. So there's this bias that comes with hiring women, that, oh, if they get married, then they might not be giving their full attention to it. And that's not it. There was another time when we wanted to outsource a DOP for a documentary project that I was doing some years ago. And I was, just thinking about, okay, who could it be? And a lot of, mostly they're male DOPs around here, right? So I was like, why don't we think of, hiring a woman DOP? And the person who I was talking to, who was in charge of hiring the said DOP, said that, no, I don't think so, because I don't think that women have the eye for it, you know. And I was like, okay, all right. So you're sometimes left like flabbergasted by the kind of things people
things,
say.
yeah,
And Biya, I'm going to say this, that these biases are completely like, I don't understand where they're coming from, because I'm being unbiased here. In my career of 11 years, whatever I've done so far, I find women as part of the crew to be harder working. They want to prove more. They want to go an extra mile. They want to stay extra hours on the set. They want to really show you that they have it in them, more than the men. Because men somehow, to no fault of theirs perhaps, it is the system that is devised this way, feel comfortable that things are going to come to them easy, because things do come to them easy.
yeah,
Women are always in this pressure of proving themselves, and it is that pressure that makes them go an extra mile. And that is amazing for the collaborative nature of filmmaking, like we were talking.
right. It's interesting the things that you both have, mentioned. I've heard like versions of the same thing, and I've I was actually about to get married, and I was working at a television network at that time, and I had a very senior person talk about how we don't invest in training women at all, because they get married and then there's no point at all. But here I am, 11 years later, I'm married and I'm still working, and it's never really had any extra impact on my professional life. other than, the way like my male colleagues, they've had the same sort of influence of their personal lives on their professional lives as well. Uh, so,
And it's not just your it's not just your employers, it's also your peers around you who, they
absolutely.
have these biases. I remember, because you mentioned TV network, I also worked for one of the TV networks. I was the director there, and
Right.
I go in, thinking this is my team, I'm the leader of the ship, I'm going to make sure everyone feels included. Little did I know that they didn't want to include me, right? On the set, I'm doing everything, and there was some challenge there, right? And I see the line producer and the AD, they're talking to each other, but they're in a huddle, and they're not really coming up to me to discuss anything. And I approached them like, "What is the delay about? What is happening?" And they wouldn't, just communicate it to me. And then it was later that the line producer took me aside and was like, "आप वो औरत है ना, तो वो लड़कियों से इन लोग को पता नहीं है कि बात किस तरह करनी है." Sometimes that is a genuine issue. They
True.
don't
Yeah.
know how to talk to, a girl, to a woman. They don't know what should they, because they're trying to be protective, because that's what our men are taught to, be protective. In
Yeah.
what they forget is there, I'm playing a role. I'm the director. You are supposed to bring issues to me so that I can solve. And then on the other hand, Biya, there is another thing that has happened to me, in the position of being a producer or a director, leading the team on set. Men usually, even sometimes who are really good friends, beside the shoot and everything, they have a hard time taking you as a leader, taking your directions, right? Because they're like, why would I take, I know better, or because there are more men. Because I have worked in situations where there were 50, 60 men and I was the only person on set, and it doesn't faze me. Personally, it doesn't faze me at all, because I go in with the focus of, getting my project done, getting the best thing out there. So it doesn't faze me. But it affects the men around me, because they feel like in their head somehow that they are, they can overpower me in some way or another, or, they could make me do things that their way and not really go my way. So those things have also happened, and they can be very tiring and exhausting. I'm not saying that women are not capable of dealing with them. That is fine. But it is, why should you be dealing with something? Because that is not the goal when you're on a location, when you are under, tough deadlines, all of that. You shouldn't be worrying about that. Not many male counterparts of ours have to worry about that.
Worry about that pressure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think like that's where conversations like these come into sort of play, right? Because we're talking about our experiences and how we heard these things, but we chose to just forge ahead anyway. And through that, like somehow I think a lot of the men that we work with have also had to unlearn biases that they had, and we also had to learn how to communicate with them and assert ourselves in such a manner that this sort of prejudice changes, and you're able
Mm-hmm.
to prove your mettle. But you're absolutely right. It is, twice the battle, because it's not just about getting a good job done and being a good leader. It's also about trying to convince, help people unlearn an entire culture, and generations of a culture that's worked that way.
And
Okay.
to that, I would also like to add that, I would also, I've also, I've had men, I've had colleagues who have also been super supportive. And I think this is also, we should also like name them, because I've had friends and I've had people that I've just called and, asked for help, that, this is something that I'm struggling with. Could you please help me out? And for instance, if
Absolutely.
there was one person who was telling me that, we don't teach girls, because eventually they'll get married. But then another person, another man, was the one who supported me and pushed me, that, if this is something that you want to do, then why don't you just go for it? So I think I also want
Right.
to like tell that it's
Credit
not.
to those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, we do face that a lot, but we also have men who have been very supportive and very helpful.
Who are in the majority, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I remember, this reminds me of an anecdote. Just recently, what happened was that we made this, I think I'm going to go back to this documentary series of our fundamentals. And, I was in talk with press for something, and they said, oh, it's a it's a documentary series about women issues made by women. They were like, it is made by two women, Sharmeen Obed-Chinoy, directed it, and you were producing the entire series, right? And I stopped them right there, because it's film, like we said earlier in the conversation, is a collaborative project, and there's no way that two women on their own can make an entire series. There was a team of predominantly men who helped us make that. And I'm going to take that word back. They didn't help us make it. They were making their own film. We were all in this, process together. So sometimes we also have to, give the credit where it's due, because there's so many good men out there, our friends, our colleagues, who we studied with, who we have, built these relationships with over all these years, who are there to support us because we're there to support them.
Absolutely. All right. I think like we've spoken somewhat at length, about the challenges that we have faced as women, at our workplaces, gender biases. I've personally seen instances of workplace harassment. In fact, that's one of the things that stops a lot of families don't want women joining this industry because of that kind of a perception. Do you want to comment on it? If you witness this sort of thing, or if you see some kind of a change that's occurring in the industry now that's making it safer, or do you think we're moving ahead, or are we at a standstill? Share your thoughts.
So do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I think Biya, I would like to share a little incident that happened with us. So I was helping a senior out with his thesis film, and this very big actress who I still admire and love, and she's still working, and she was acting in his thesis film. And I remember, because we had only 2 days to shoot the thesis film, and I was working there as an AD, and we also had girls in the wardrobe department, in the art department. So we had a lot of girls on set behind the camera. So whenever we had to like shoot another scene, so we would like take her with us, and I used to go over the lines with her, and someone was fixing her hair, and someone was fixing her whatever, help her change the wardrobe. So randomly, while we were doing all of that, she just paused, and she said, "I can't tell you how happy I am that more women are entering this field behind the camera." Because you don't realize that when we're on set, it's just us who, it's only us
Yeah.
on set, and there are no women behind the camera, and sometimes it gets uncomfortable. But it's so
Yeah.
nice, and so it makes me so happy to see that so many women have decided to, to pursue this career, and they're willing to work behind the camera. So I think it's just that it has, I think we still have a long way to go, but I think it has already started. I think, and also, you will find people who will pass remarks. जैसे I've heard a lot कि over these 8 years के क्या कर रही हो तुम अपनी जिंदगी के साथ, just get married and settle down, तुम क्यों ख्वारी कर रही हो. And I remember when I was heading the department, or if I had to like stay back because work was being
I think
done,
we
and
lost
I was,
Sourath. But I'm just going to add that it's
yeah,
Sourath back.
am I
Yeah.
am I
Sourath is back. Sourath, you're
अच्छा,
back.
okay. Yeah. So as I was saying that I've have people have passed comments like घर नहीं जाना, तुम्हारे घर वाले तुम्हें कुछ बोलते नहीं हैं, पूरी पूरी रात बाहर रहती हो. But I used to stay only because I knew that my team is staying back to get the work done. How can I go back home? I need to be there for them. I need to be there with them. तो फिर ऐसे comments आते थे कि घर नहीं जाती, तुम्हारे घर वाले कुछ नहीं बोलते, पूरी पूरी रात घर से बाहर होते हो. But I think for me, the way I used to tackle it was कि एक कान से सुना दूसरे कान से निकाल दिया. But I don't know if that's the right way, but that worked for me because I used to focus on my work, and this is what I want to do. I need to deliver something, and I just focus on that, and nothing else matters at that point, maybe.
Right. Safia, do you want to add something to it? I can see that you do
Yeah.
want something to
Yeah,
this.
a lot. So I think fortunately, मुझे इस तरह कभी किसी ने बोला नहीं कि इतना क्या करोगी काम करके, because I'm also very alpha like that. Sourath would agree with that I don't take no, BS from anyone, and I, because I'm very vocal about gender justice, gender rights, and all of that. So that hasn't happened with me. But what has happened with me is, and that is a very, extraordinary event that happened, and it's not one event only once ever that had happened. I was working for a TV, network, and right after I resigned. So I've worked with certain people, certain men in the industry who have enjoyed a certain kind of reputation of being Casanova, or, you stay away from them and all that. But I'll give it to them that when I was working with them, as a director or a producer or a production head, whatever, I never really experienced any episode that would make me complain about that. However, once I was done with this, television network, and I resigned, I was called by my boss, and I went to see him, and he offered me to, he offered that I could perhaps be even more successful than wherever I was standing in my career at that point of time, should I choose to give him some sexual favors. And I was like, okay, so this person probably doesn't really know me, and that's why he had the audacity to make such a proposition, right? So in that case, I really want to talk about this, especially because this is a reality of our industry, especially local industry. We don't have a lot of production houses like SOC Films, I'm going to put it out there as well, that are sheltered and protected, and that are, where we have a good woman leader, who makes sure that there's a safe environment for everyone, girls and guys, to work together, right? So the bigger reality, the larger reality of our country is that a lot of production houses, local production houses, they can get away with a lot of harassment. They can get, we all know, casting couch is a very, it is a reality, right? We all know that. So I want to talk to, all the girls who are listening to me right now. They're going to, after they graduate, they're going to definitely be reaching out to, the XYZ production houses that are working locally. I want them to know that they have to be confident when they're approached in this way, and call these people out right in their faces, so they never have the audacity to do that again to any other girl, right? Now we are living in this kind of a world where we have social media, where you can talk about, people and just call them out. What happens in cases of girls, and it is not their fault all the time, we live in a culture where, girls are told to be quiet, let it go, right? Compromise. These are the words that a lot of girls, grow up with. I'm fortunate that I wasn't, trained this way, and I'm just not designed that way, perhaps, I don't know. So I like to call people out right there. I would say to all the girls to call people out right there on their face immediately and share their stories. There's no need to be ashamed if something has happened to you, right? And I'm going to shift it here, because it doesn't just happen in the case of, sexual exploitation. Exploitations are of multiple nature. There is an economic, financial exploitation that happens. Girls are expected to take the same job, do the same amount of labor, given the same number of times, but somehow being paid less, right? And be quiet about that, because you're a girl, so they do not expect you to fight back. They do not expect you to, kind of demand what you think is your rightful, due. So I think for all the girls who must be listening, it is really important, one, to work really hard so you're really good at what you do. That would help you build that confidence that you need to stand in front of anyone and communicate and demand what you think you deserve. And then don't back up. Don't back down.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, Safyah, that personal experience, and for sort of showing us that it's okay. It's not your fault when something like this happens. And what you can do is speak out about it, and how to sort of face this, because this is a reality of our industry, and all of us have faced it. And also, where you brought in economic exploitation, it happens to me now. Like, I've been in the industry for so many years, and I was called in last month to a television network, and they were sort of trying to gaslight me into taking up a position that was like maybe 3 rungs below where my last job was, and offer me a very hilarious salary given my level of education and years of experience, and I just had to, I knew better not to get gaslit. But when I was younger and when I started my career, I did make those mistakes. I did fall into those pitfalls, and I learned. But us waqt, there were fewer people sort of showing you the way. There were fewer women having these conversations like we are right now. And that also kind of really brings me into something that I wanted to discuss with you guys, which was the role of mentors. What having a mentor means. I mean, I personally, when I started working in this industry, I was unable to find a mentor, either male or female, and I generally, felt sort of misguided and exploited mostly, and I had to find my own sort of like, feet, and make my own path, but what has been your experience, and what would you say about finding the right mentor in this industry?
To find the right mentor is, I would say, in this country, a privilege, because
Right.
not many people are out there waiting to find mentees to hold their hands and guide them.
Yeah.
It is actually the opposite. There are people who want to pull you down, because they're probably not doing that well. We live in such a culture. It is something
Mm,
about our culture, perhaps.
mm,
It is not the same way out, in, I don't know, anywhere else. But it is. I cannot stress on the importance of having a mentor. And unfortunately, I have, yeah, same boat. Since very early on, I remember it, my goal was to find a mentor, and I was like, I need someone who would help me not make the wrong decisions. But what I learned, and I did find some people here and there who have guided me when it was really needed. But if I could say that there has been a mentor who has stayed with me, I would be lying here if I say that. I wish for girls and guys who graduate here on to find those kind of figures in their lives who can
yeah.
help them set the right goal is also very important, Priya.
Mm,
Because, and mentors can help you set that right goal. To
absolutely.
negotiate with people is very important, Priya, and mentors can help you do
Help
that.
you with that.
To always stay when you're in a deep dip, to stay motivated and know that this is going to be over and it happens to everyone and you're not alone. That is also very important, and mentors help you. I have realized in my career so far, there are two things that have been my mentors. One, of course, my own experiences. They have mentored me. I've learned from my mistakes
Mm,
that I don't have to be quiet where I'm supposed to be speaking up, that I don't have to work with certain kind of people, that I have to, stand up and speak up for myself. But more importantly, or perhaps equally importantly, my mentors have been my peers, the people who graduated with me, the people who graduated right after me, the people who have been working with me, the people of my age, a little junior, Sourath has been my mentor, I would say, right? There have been so many people who have been my mentor because we're all being exploited. It's just a cycle, right? She probably, I probably got exploited in certain areas, she's probably getting exploited in certain others, right? And we talk and we communicate. We do that. We went to each other. And when we're having that kind of communication, that is like a therapeutic mentoring that is happening, right? So in my experiences, we have been each other's mentors. And going forward as well, I think we'll have to rely on this kind of, communication and this kind of community that we need to build so that we can mentor each other. Why look outside? Why look at someone else? Because we also need to realize, Biya, that perhaps women before us or people before us, they had a very different mindset, right?
yeah.
And to get a mentor, it is unfortunate if you're not able to get it. And I can't stress enough on the importance of having a mentor. But if you're not able to get it, we can't be entitled about it, right? I can't say, oh, I never had a mentor, so I'm just gonna sit in my, at my place and I can't really have a career. I need to hustle and find that way. I need to create a community, and women need to, create that community so that we can be mentoring each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we move on to you, Sourath, I just want to say we're open for any sort of questions and comments. You can type in into the comment box, and I'll share that with the participants. Sourath, would you want to add to what Safyah was saying? Have you had a different experience, or has
Yeah.
it been?
I find myself really lucky that even though I completely agree that when you're I think when you find your peers to be your mentors, I think that's also, it helps you in the when in your field, and it helps you because you're always, you try to be there for each other, how to tackle problems together. But I think I've also been really lucky that the first 4 years that I spent in the industry, I had a great mentor. I think I can name him Jami Mahmood Jami Bhai. I was working directly with him, and I think that is how I was able to take the decision of going into post production, because when I was working on his film, the first film that I was interning on, and he found out that I wanted to be in the camera team, but because there was no vacancy, I was put in the wardrobe department where I had to even like wash clothes and iron clothes, and I was dreading my life, and I was so sad that this is what I'm doing. I wanted to be in another department, but when he found out, he asked me that I heard that you wanted to be in the camera team, but you're doing this, and I can't tell you how I really appreciate it, because we really needed someone for this position. So for his next project, he asked me, you tell me, what department do you want to be in? And I said, I would like to work in the director's team. So he had given me the choice. He let me experiment. I've also made mistakes, and he let me do that. Not a lot of people do that in the industry, and I think I'm so blessed, and I'm so grateful, and I think I was working with him and under him for 4 years, and the amount of faith that he had in me, and this a really close friend of mine who's also a girl, and we used to work together. So a lot of people also used to tell him, you're risking your entire feature length film on these two girls. Do you think they'll be able to do the job? He's like, they'll do the best job ever. So I think you sometimes you need someone to like have faith in you when you are also like kind of doubting yourself. I think I've been really lucky, and I think it has helped me later in my career, because I was able to take decisions that for myself, that yes, I am capable of doing this. I can do it because I've done it before. So I
Right.
think
Right.
I have been really lucky, but then also, like as Safyah said.
But it's been like it's heartening to hear that you did have that experience, and that
Yeah.
it did make a difference. And I guess like it it's something to think about, like as we progress in our careers, and we start working with people who are younger than us, and what kind of an approach we should sort of be cultivating towards them, not just us, all our peers, who are all like a decade into the industry maybe, and then foster that sort of attitude in younger uh, people as well, so that they know how far this can go. We have like a little less than 15 minutes left before we wrap this up. Maybe we can sort of direct our conversation about sort of going forward, and just sort of practical aspects that like young graduates and young students think about. And I was asked by younger people these questions, and they were thinking about because our industry is still fairly unstructured, how to get started, where do you apply, how to understand if a place is a safe place for you to work, and how to monetize your skills, because that becomes a big challenge. So how to monetize your skills while still growing in your career. So this sort of a very practical view on things, if you'd like to share. I know that was a bunch of like different aspects, but I can go back point by
No,
point
that's
if you.
fine. That's fine. First, demand a stipend for your internship. Don't do internships for free. Try to talk to people and just get internship, get some kind of stipend in exchange of your internship. Free labor, no, that shouldn't happen. You should have confidence in yourself to be able to put yourself in your position where you can demand that. One. Two, how to decide what place is safe to work or not. Pretty easy, I would say, because we are not the first. You're not going to be the first one stepping into the industry. There are people working around. I'm sure there's a network of alumni you can reach out to. There's always people who are connected to someone or another. So you can reach out to people around you to talk to them. You can even, talk to your professors. This is where I'm planning to work. So just drop in words and take advices, and, kind of find a feeler as to what every place we know, we also know what kind of a reputation it enjoys. And if you can totally
Hmm.
reach out to people who are seniors to you, that is another thing. In terms of moving forward, I think it is not, don't just get comfortable as soon as you get a job, because the real journey really begins after that, right? You have to prove your mettle. And how do you prove your mettle? Yes, networking and all of those things obviously come in, right? But the first thing is you should be really good, ridiculously good at what you do, so that you can hone that confidence and stand up in front of people. And for that, you need to have that kind of a work ethic. You need to have that kind of discipline. You need to have that kind of passion and love for what you do. So be really good at what you do so that you can demand the real value that you're bringing to the organization or to the team that you're working with.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those, I think, are some of the things at the top of my mind that I can think about, because then you'll also be able to demand the right kind of money that you think you deserve. That's also important. And create a network. We live in the world where it's not just what you know, it's also about who you know. So
Yeah.
create a network, invest in that. That is a skill that is not really taught in our schools and colleges these days, right? And it is very important to learn that skill. How to reach out to people, how to stay connected, how to make sure they know that you exist. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you may be doing the best work in the world. If there's no audience for it, what's the point?
Right, right. Sourath, would you like to like comment on and on what Safyah was saying, and also, how she's talking about like people should know that you and your work exist. Like, has there been a particular tactic to do this that you found useful, something that worked for you?
I
Um,
think for me, it was I think I agree that you need to reach out to people, and people you're just send them a message and tell them that this is what I'm interested in, what should I do, and people are more than willing to help. So that it's, and because filmmaking, they put a lot of emphasis on networking with people, talking about people and their journeys, you learn a great deal from them. And also I think, as I said before, the willingness to start small and working your way up the ladder. Because I know, when you're younger, you are passionate about being a filmmaker, you have this insane amount of energy, but like once you start, I think experience also matters. So like, but you need to start from somewhere. So that willingness needs to be there, because it is difficult, but I think if it's something that you really love doing, and if you want to, if you're willing to learn, and if you're willing to, like, give it your all, go for it.
yeah,
There's
I
another thing that's, sorry, B, I'm going to cut you there. There's
sure.
another thing that's really important, which I feel like, and I very passionately believe in that. We're living in, a time where the social media is right there, right?
Hmm.
I think it's really important, even early on in your career, to start building your own brand, to have that kind of strategy, not just let your work just stay in your drives or in your wherever, right? It's important for people, use your social media to create that brand identity, so that because
Hmm.
now your social media is basically your resume, right? Especially for artists, right? Especially for filmmakers, uh, for anyone really. So that is really important, to create that kind of a brand strategy for yourself, starting from the first day onwards, so that you can create that value in your own identity, right? That is also very important.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to add to that, in the very traditional sort of, like, the first time that you get on a set, there are like so many different people on a set, right? And that's your network. So your work ethic on that very first set, whether you're just a young intern, this somebody is always paying attention, and it's that like work ethic that sort of shines through, and also the way you behave with other people. It's not just how well you work, it's also how you work with other people. And you don't know when somebody is watching and they need somebody for their next project, and so right from the get go, from your very first sort of set that you put your feet on, right? Like, that's your network, that's the beginning of your network,
That's true.
so I do think like it's really important to be aware and not be sort of goofing off on your, just because you're an intern, or that sort of a thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would like to add to that, that it's one thing to be talented and have an opportunity come your way, but it's another thing that, how do you use that opportunity? You need to like, make use of it, and you really need to like hold on to it and make the best of it, because otherwise people will, it shouldn't be an opportunity wasted. And
Right.
if you are good at what you do, people will call you up and ask you to work with them. And yeah.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone steal your credit.
That is very
Don't
good
let them.
advice. We have like 5 minutes left. We're still open for any comments and questions. Um, while as sort of to wrap up what we're talking about, somebody asked me the other day, and a young woman who's studying media, and she said, and then this is something that we discussed as well earlier this week, about how there's boys clubs, and there's not enough of a sort of like a network and a sister code developed between us as like women filmmakers yet. And there's somebody who's asking me, where do we find each other, where do we find people like ourselves, women like ourselves, so what would you have to say about that?
I agree. And this is something that we cannot blame any other gender for.
Yeah.
We have to be proactive about this, right? And I've had this conversation with many women who are working in the industry about the same thing, that we need to build that community where we can create that space, where we can discuss our projects, pass on our projects, share our projects, create
Yeah.
opportunities for each other outside of that 9 to 5 world that you perhaps are working for, because men do that.
Yeah.
Women don't do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that in my experience, women don't do that. We need to do that. And yes, why don't women do that? We can get into it, right? There are many reasons. The system is designed that way, that it doesn't
Yeah.
encourage women. In fact, it discourages women from doing that. Men could just go out and sit on the road at the dhaba and talk about it. अपनी बाइक पे निकल के चले गए, गाड़ी पे निकल के चले गए. मुझे निकलना है रात के, अगर मैं जॉब से फारिग हुई हूँ, शूट से फारिग हुई हूँ, मुझे रात के 11 बजे टाइम मिला है, मैं 10 दफा सोचूंगी कि यार
Right.
अकेले ड्राइव करके जाना, इज इट सेफ फॉर मी और नॉट. मैं
Right.
3 लोगों को, और मेरे पता नहीं घर में इजाजत मिलेगी, लड़कियों को घर में रात में इजाजत मिलेगी कि नहीं मिलेगी, बोलेंगे आप घर आ जाए, राइट? सो देयर आर many different challenges that are there in the ways of women, but I recognize them. But I would still say, if we want to move forward, we have to come collectively create that community, that safe space for us to move forward. There is no other way around it.
Absolutely. Sourath, would you want to add something to
Yeah,
what's up?
I think also when I was when I was starting out, I didn't have any female role models to you know uh, look for. And I think, but now that we have more and more women coming in slowly and gradually, just reach out to them, like send them a message, and I want to pursue this as a career, and I think you can message me and I'll be more than willing to help you out. And I think slowly and gradually women are coming together, because I was very fortunate to work on two such projects in which we had an entire female cast and crew, and we made a music video. I worked on two such music videos actually, and the entire cast in front of the camera and behind the camera was entirely it was just all female
Can you tell
filmmakers.
us what those projects were?
So one was a music video that we did for Women's Day last year in 2020. This was just before the lockdown happened. So it was about, it was an effort. We were trying to just, it was more than the world. We were just trying to like see, can we do this as women? Can all the women, come together and make a film just by themselves? And it was a small effort, and we were pretty successful at it. It was about, uh, and the music videos was called, मैं वो करूँ जो मैं चाहूँ. So that was it was something we were trying to tell ourselves as well. We can do this. If you want to do it. And
Right.
then another one was a music video for Zara Paracha, and usme bhi we had like an entire female crew and cast, and everything was done. Even the DOP was a female. Edit, grade, sound design, everything was done by women. So yeah, I think we need to come together more often. It has started, but like reach out to female filmmakers, maybe work with them, shadow them. And I think that should like work, hopefully. And because we need people, and I
Yeah.
think when I started out, there were no women in the post production, but slowly and gradually I think Safyah knows that we had, for the longest time, we had I think for one whole year we had a post production department with just female editors and colors. And
Oh
that
yes.
was, yeah. So but it has started, but it'll take time, but it has started. That's
Right, right.
something really.
Maybe we need to think about like more sort of like formalized like organizations or unions that
Yeah,
sort of bring like make it like their agenda to like bring women together, teach them how to negotiate, like
yeah,
advocate for policies, workplace policies, and then
yeah,
also more state level policies and all of that stuff.
Yes.
A safe
And
space.
till then that happens, yes, we need to work on that. I just need to expand on something that I said earlier, how social media could be used as our resume. It is also our responsibility. Find the resume, it's coming from a selfish place, right? I want to showcase all that I can do. Great.
Hmm.
But there's another aspect to it. I need to put all the work out there because there are many girls out there who are looking for women, that they can look up to. Like Sourath said, she wanted to find someone, a woman, filmmaker perhaps to look up to. We need to put ourselves on the map. The onus is on us, the
Hmm.
responsibility is on us. Bia, there have been so many times I'm really bad at my social media, management. But there have been times, whatever little I put up there have been times that I get these messages from girls who I don't even know, from somewhere in Pakistan or somewhere in UAE or somewhere in London. They'll go like, thank you so much. I'm going on full ride because you went.
You
I
went.
am doing this because you went. I went to this shadi once, and there was this whole drama about, the it was chaotic at that shadi, right? And I was sitting at this table with the strangers. I didn't know anyone. And there was this 13-year-old girl sitting there with her parents, right? And they were talking about, she was talking about, the nikah nama, the right to divorce, right, for women. She started schooling everyone on the table, this 13-year-old girl. And I was surprised, right? उससे पहले हमने एक सीरीज की थी, सौरभ को अगर याद है, हमने एक सीरीज की थी about rights of women, and all the what is nikah nama, it's a contract, क्या क्या होता है, you should know your rights. मैं सुन रही थी. 10 minutes later, she goes like, she didn't know I worked for Sharmeen Obed-Chinoy back then, right? 10 minutes later, she goes like, very confidently, आपको पता है ये जो होता है ना, मैं मेरे पास राइट है कि मैं तो डलवाऊंगी कि आई कैन गिव डिवोर्स, राइट? तो हर पेरेंट्स वर लाइक, व्हाट आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट? एंड शी वाज लाइक, आप लोगों को पता नहीं है, शर्मीन ओबेद चिनॉय ने एक फिल्म निकाली है, उसके अंदर उन्होंने ये बात की है, वो फिल्म मैंने बनाई थी, राइट, अंडर शर्मीन ओबेद. So I was so proud of this, that people are looking for content, people are looking for inspiration.
Hmm.
It is
Hmm.
also a onus and responsibility on us to provide that
Right, that, right.
inspiration and information constantly. You
Right.
never know who's watching.
Right, which is true for today's webinar as well, right? That's the spirit in which we got together to have this conversation today. And there's so many more things that we can talk about, and maybe at some point we can hold another seminar, क्योंकि अभी you just mentioned content, जिसको अभी हमने discuss ही नहीं किया आज. But unfortunately we're at the sort of end of our
Wow, it's been an hour.
yeah, and I feel like we could just keep going on and talk. There's so much more to talk about, but I really want to thank you both, and I want to thank you for sharing your experiences and being so honest, and like you were saying, I'm sure there's people watching who will have learned something from this, and people who will be getting inspired to keep on going. So
Yes.
thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much,
Biya.
Bia. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I'm going to end the broadcast now. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.